Coming in at our number 10 spot, we have the Daring Woods. Located in the heart of Pluckley, Kent, lies a dense woodland with a very tragic past. The Daring Woods, also known as the Screaming Woods, has garnered worldwide attention due to many reports of screams that just seem to echo throughout the forest at night. The origins of the screams and other paranormal activity in the forest still remain a complete mystery to all the locals, but some say it's the spirits of a massacre that occurred in these woods on November 1st, 1948. This is when 20 people were found dead, 11 whom were children. They presented no wounds, and after an investigation was done, they stated the cause being carbon monoxide poisoning. Others speculate that it could be the spirit of Robert Dubois, who was a notorious highwayman who killed in these woods in the 18th century. Witnesses have reported seeing a figure in a long black coat and boots, which they believe to be the ghost of Dubois, and some have even claimed that they see him screaming at them when they have encounters, which would explain the Screaming Woods name. And it doesn't stop there, because in 1964, private investigator Robert Collins conducted interviews and discovered an unknown religious cult operating in these woods. But before he can complete any of his findings, he tragically passed away from a car accident. Ever since, the reputation of the Screaming Woods has gone beyond the borders of Britain and has been featured in many shows like Ghost Hunters International and even Top Gear. Visitors from all over the world have been drawn to this forest in just the hope of experiencing a paranormal encounter, and if you do dare to visit, maybe you'll get a chance to hear those lovely screams echoing throughout. Number 9, we have the Pine Barrens. Spanning over 1.1 million acres, the Pine Barrens in New Jersey are a rural and scenic stretch of land that is also known to have an abundance of ghosts and all sorts of supernatural creatures. The most famous paranormal Pine Barrens resident is the Jersey Devil, and I've talked about this guy in the past, but for those who don't know, he is a demonic creature said to have wings, hooves, a horse-like head, claws, a forked tail, and a terrifying scream. Local legend says that the Jersey Devil was the 13th child of Deborah Leeds, which is a lady born in 1735. When she gave birth, many believed her to be cursed and thought her child was the literal spawn of Satan. Reports of the Jersey Devil sightings date back all the way to 1820, and the creature was blamed for livestock killings in the 1840s and again in the 1920s. The most famous incident of panic over the Jersey Devil occurred in 1909, with hundreds of sightings and attacks reported, leading to a widespread hysteria. But the Jersey Devil is only the start of the supernatural entities that haunt the Pine Barrens. The ghost of a small boy is also said to haunt the Atco area, roaming Burton Mill Road, searching for his killer. As well, James Still, an African-American doctor during the time of slavery, was lynched by locals when they found out he was practicing medicine. Legend says that he now roams the Pine Barrens as a friendly ghost, assisting those who are lost or even injured in the area. Other ghosts include a blonde woman, a white stag, a black dog, and even the headless spirit of an infamous pirate, Captain Kidd. So if you ever happen to stumble in New Jersey, try your best to avoid getting lost in these woods. At our number 8 spot, we have the Epping Forest. The Epping Forest, located in England, is a 6,000 acre forest that has a dark history and has been the hideout of many dangerous criminals and murderers over the years. One of these includes Ronald Jepson, a sick pedophile and a murderer who targeted many children in this forest. Highwayman Richard Turpin has committed multiple murders in this forest as well, so best believe that hundreds of bodies were buried in the Epping Forest over the years. Those who decide to take a hike in this forest report hearing blood-curdling screams at night, footsteps, and whispers on foggy days telling them to leave immediately. But perhaps the most haunting area of Epping Forest is the suicide pool. Legend has it that a girl was killed by her father at the pool over 300 years ago after he found out she was meeting a boy in secret. Her lover later took his life at the same spot. Since then, there's been multiple people taking their own lives in this area, including that of a woman named Emma Morgan who killed her child and herself at this pond. Locals say that the pool has the evil force within its dark waters that just seems to compel people to take their own lives, and also no birds or animals have been heard near the spot, which gives it this more supernatural feeling when you come close to it. At our number 7 spot, we are the Freetown Fall River State Forest. The Freetown Fall River State Forest in Massachusetts is a part of a 200 square mile area known as the Bridgewater Triangle. This place is notorious for Bigfoot sightings, UFO encounters, and even paranormal activity. The forest was once occupied by Native Americans in the 1600s who left behind some burial grounds when they were forced to leave it. And this is another reason why many people believe this is part of what makes the forest so eerie. Now, since the 1900s, there's been reports of bodies found all over these woods, including a young girl who was tied to a tree and left there for dead in 1978. The killer was eventually caught and convicted, but many people believe the forest exerts a dark influence that drives people to do bad things and even commit murder. On top of that, the forest is also believed to have been used for satanic murders in the 1970s and the 80s. But as mentioned, there has been reports of UFO sightings as well, poltergeists, and even fireballs in the sky. Even President Reagan claimed to have seen things in these woods when he decided to take a visit. He claimed to have seen strange lights in the sky that almost seemed to be following him and his group. Number 6, the Hoya Forest. The Hoya Forest in Transylvania is a place that is believed by many to be the most haunted forest in the world. For decades, locals and visitors alike have reported strange and unexplained experiences after entering this frightening forest. Located just west of the city of Cluj-Napoca, the Hoya Forest has trees that are warped, bent, twisted, and contorted into nightmarish shapes that seem to defy the laws of nature. The forest's abnormal atmosphere has earned it the nickname Romania's Bermuda Triangle. The forest name itself references its mysterious past. It was named after a local shepherd who disappeared in the forest with his flock of about 200 sheep and was never seen again. For years, strange stories about people vanishing into the Hoya Forest remained local lore, but in 1968, a Soviet military technician named Emil Barnia claimed to have taken pictures of a UFO hovering above a clearing in the forest. This claim is different than most UFO sightings because Emil Barnia has nothing to gain from reporting it, but he had everything to lose. As well, in the center of the forest, there's a mysterious near-perfect circular patch where nothing but grass grows. The clearing, as it is called, attracts all sorts of strange people to the bizarre forest, which include Romanian witches, the death-obsessed, and even the occasional group looking to open a portal to another dimension. Just a regular thing, right? Scientists have tested soil from the clearing, but there seems to be no physical difference that would keep trees from growing there. This has further fueled the rumors that the forest is haunted and full of paranormal power. People who enter the forest today regularly report really odd symptoms like headaches, anxiety, nausea, and the unshakable feeling that they're being watched the entire time they're walking there. Electronic devices have also been known to fail there as well, and some have even seen ghostly spirits lurking behind the deformed trees that I mentioned earlier. In the hump of our list, we have the Black Forest. The Black Forest is more than just a simple forest. It's an entire mountain range located in the southwest of Germany. Due to its age and vast expanse, the Black Forest has become the subject of numerous urban legends and stories, including the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. For instance, there are tales of supposed sea creatures who lure unsuspecting travelers to their watery graves, as well as stories about a large gathering of Celtic ghosts haunting a local graveyard in this place. Oh, and it doesn't stop there. There's even a story of an ancient king who lives underwater and decides to drag women into the water with him. And the Black Forest's creepy atmosphere is not only due to its myths and legends. The forest's thick and dense fir trees cast deep shadows on the ground, creating this eerie and perpetual darkness that only adds to its sense of foreboding. Those who call this area their home report themselves as the guardians of this grotto, tasked with protecting it from those who seek to exploit its natural resources or even disrupt its delicate balance. Could there be truth in the fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm stories, or is this place's mystery all just fictional? Let me know in the comments. All the way at a number 4 spot, we have the Devil's Tramping Ground. Located in the dense forest of Harper Crossroad area in Bear Creek, North Carolina, lies a camping ground known as the Devil's Tramping Ground. And I know, the name alone should tell you all about this place, because in local lore, they suggest this is the location where the devil, quote, tramps, and this has caused a small circle of area to become lifeless and never have the ability to grow anything. Locals have tried to revive the area by planting various seeds and using fertilizers, but nothing seems to be able to fully grow within this circle of land. Some historians believe that this was also an ancient meeting place for local Native American tribes, and they would come here to do ceremonial dances and all sorts of other festivals. However, in the 1930s, newspapers were hit with the news that a beast was guarding the grounds, and the story reads, quote, "Coon and possum hunters and their dogs have been on more than one occasion chased from the vicinity of the Devil's Tramping Ground by a ferocious beast said to resemble a black bear." Number 3, Dal Hill. Located in the northeastern region of India, between the borders of Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh, lies a forest that will make you feel scared and uncomfortable the entire hike. The forest, known as Dal Hill, is considered one of the most haunted spots in India, and for good reason. Visitors to this forest have reported feeling a sense of being watched, almost as if the eyes are following their every move. Some even claim to catch glimpses of strange movements in their periphery, only to turn and find nothing there. However, the occurrences don't stop there. There's also been reports of a screaming woman in the woods, and several visitors have even claimed to see red eyes peeking at them from the trees. But perhaps the most famous ghost sighting in Dow Hill is that of a headless boy who has been seen wandering through the forest and down the street known as Death Road. Even the high school situated beside the woods is believed to be haunted as well. Many students claim to hear loud whispers coming from inside the lockers and footsteps during the closed months. So best believe not only the woods are haunted, but this entire area is haunted by ghosts. Number 2, the Island of the Dolls. Nestled between the serene canals of Xochimilco in Mexico lies the Island of the Dolls, a place that looks scary in pictures and even worse in person. And the obvious reason is because the island is home to hundreds of abandoned dolls, which at first glance may seem eerie, but their presence is actually the result of a sorrowful story. But back to the scary part. According to the legend, the island is haunted by the spirit of a young girl who died there in mysterious circumstances. As well, visitors to the island have reported that the dolls' heads and arms move, and also report their eyes opening and closing, leading to some believing that the girl's spirit still clings on to these dolls. However, the true story behind the dolls is far more poignant. Don Julian Santana Barrera, the island's caretaker, stumbled upon the body of a young girl near the canals one day. He then saw a doll floating in the water that he believed belonged to the girl, and in memory of her, he hung the doll from a nearby tree. And this was just the beginning. He began to hang more dolls in an attempt to appease her spirit, as well as to appease other entities he believed that were present on the island. Sadly, Barrera passed away in 2001, but his legacy lives on as the Island of the Dolls has since become a very popular tourist attraction. Number 1, the Okigara Forest. The Okigara Forest, also known as the Sea of Trees, sits right along the edge of Mount Fuji, roughly a 2-hour drive west of Tokyo. At the entrance of the forest, you are greeted by a sign that reminds visitors that life is a precious gift from their parents. Okigara's dark reputation has been around for decades, and if you don't know about it, here it is. Legend has it that in the older times, when food was in short supply and the situation grew desperate, a family might take a dependent elderly relative, typically a woman, to a remote location and leave her to pass away. At first, the ghost visitors have claimed they saw in Okigara were presumed to be vengeful spirits of the old who had been abandoned to starvation and the mercy of the elements. But that all began to change in the 1960s. More than 100 people who were not from the area surrounding Okigara took their own lives there between 2013 and 2015. Countrywide, people who took their own lives there roughly total around 24,000 people in the year 2015 alone, according to the country's Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. These numbers don't include the amount of people who attempted there also, and this is just a really sad fact. And with all these people taking their lives in these woods, it's not really hard to believe that this place is extremely haunted, so best believe to take care if you decide to visit this forest. At our number 10 spot, we have the Crown's Casino Morgue. There's been rumors circulating online about the existence of a morgue under or within the Crown's Casino in Melbourne, Australia. The rumor suggests that there is a secret corridor with walls that open up into the toilets, which are used to take away bodies of people who just have taken their life at the casino, which is supposedly a very high number, unfortunately. Some reports even suggest there are specific bathroom stalls designed for quick body disposal, but that's not confirmed. Although there is no concrete evidence to support these rumors, the stories keep on persisting and continue to intrigue everyone that come across this casino. Some websites even claim that the last stall in each bathroom is always occupied because it's connected to hallways to get people out who take their lives in the bathrooms. The reason for this high number is because many people believe that the Crown's Casino is a place of broken dreams and despair, where people are prone to suicidal thoughts as they gamble their life away. However, the actual number of people taking their lives at this casino is unclear, with reports ranging from 3 per year to as many as 30 or 40. Despite all these rumors as well, the casino denies the existence of a morgue on its premises. But some people believe that the Crown would want to keep any people taking their lives under wraps to avoid any tarnishing of its image, and that would kind of make sense. At a number 9 spot, we have the Princess Theatre. The Princess Theatre in Victoria, Melbourne, Australia is a historic landmark that has been in operation since 1857. Despite its beauty, the theatre is also known for its ghostly inhabitant, Frederick Baker. Baker was an actor who tragically died during a performance of Frost in 1888. According to reports, Baker was overwhelmed by the play and suffered a heart attack as he was lowered down through the stage via a trapdoor into the basement below the stage. Ever since then, Baker ghosts have been reportedly seen in this theater, especially when a play is taking place. He has also been spotted in the dressing rooms wearing more than one outfit and staring at the stage as if he's about to perform himself. The Princess Theater has a rich history that began in 1854 when it was built by Charles Copin, who owned 2 theaters in Melbourne. The Princess Theater was proclaimed to be equal to the Paris Opera in France, and now today the Princess Theater is owned by David Mariner and was the first place in Australia where the play The Phantom of the Opera was shown. It became so successful that it is now the longest running play ever shown in Victoria, and despite its success and popularity, the theater's haunted history continues to draw visitors and ghost hunters alike. At the number 8 spot, we have the Guyra incident. Guyra is a rural township in northern New South Wales, Australia, perched high on a volcanic uplift of the northern tablelands. It is known for being one of the highest places in Australia and one of the coldest. But on December 8th, 1999, a mysterious object fell from the sky and smashed into the local water dam, creating a crater and flattening an area of reeds in a semicircular pattern. Locals have been calling in actual sightings of a green light that had caused a loud boom about 30 seconds after being sighted. Space agencies, meteorological experts, and authorities have no record of a meteorite or space junk coming from down in the area at the time. Despite normal radiation levels, the water supply was cut while divers searched for this object. The incident hit the news in a major way, featuring prominently on all major TV networks, radio stations, and newspapers. It caused hysteria in the small town, with rumors circulating that a UFO had crashed at the dam. Theories ranged from a meteorite or space junk all the way to aliens. Police divers even discovered a subterranean cavern or tunnel which was suspected to have been caused by the object drilling down into the ground. However, the object could not be located and was speculated to have buried itself about 13 feet down into the soft granite of the earth. The official cause of the impact was now being seen as a meteorite, which was thought to be about the size of a grapefruit. However, there were no further efforts to retrieve it. Some people believe that officials were covering up the truth and that it was no meteorite but rather a UFO. 2 researchers from Phenomena Research Australia went to investigate and found some odd details that did not fit into the meteorite theory. The object still remains a mystery to this day, and this incident is still talked about as one of the most bizarre events to occur in the small town. At our number 7 spot, we have the Westfall UFO. The Westfall UFO sighting was a mysterious event that took place on April 6, 1966 in Melbourne, Australia. A group of students and a teacher from Westfall High School reported seeing a large gray or silvery green saucer-shaped craft descending over flying the school and then suddenly disappearing behind a strand of trees. The object reappeared 20 minutes later and rapidly climbed before departing towards the northwest. Some witnesses reported seeing 5 unidentified aircraft pursuing the object. The odd thing is that the local TV station 6 claimed to have footage of the UFO, but when they went to bring it to authorities, it somehow vanished. And you know how that goes. The Australian newspaper The Age tried to explain the sighting as a weather balloon, but a subsequent check failed to find any commercial, private, or RAAF pilots who had reported anything unusual in the area at the time. Several explanations have been offered over the years, with one of the most plausible being that the object was a runaway balloon from the Hibble project, which was used to monitor radiation levels after British nuclear tests at Mar-a-Lago. At our number 6 spot, we have The Devil Among Us. In 1979, tragedy struck a family visiting Sydney's Luna Park. While waiting for a ferry at the Circular Quay, a man dressed in a satanic costume with like horned headdress and all approached them and posed for a photo with their young son. And little did they know, this would be the last photo of that boy. Because later that night, a fire broke out in a ride at Luna Park, claiming the lives of this entire family. The police found the photo of the man in the satanic costume, but were unable to identify him. The mysterious incident left room for a legend to grow, and that the devil himself was walking among the people of Sydney, bringing death to whoever he touched. The identity of the man in the satanic costume and the true cause of the fire still remain a mystery to this day. And believe me, police searched desperately in order to ask him some questions. And ever since that incident, he has been renowned as literally the devil around Australia. In the hump of our list, we have the Hawkesbury River Monster. It appears that every place has its own river or lake monsters. Sightings of the Hawkesbury River Monster, also known as the Mooney Mooney Monster, were reported all the way back since the 1800s, although Aboriginal rock art in the region describing a similar creature dates back all the way to 3,000 years ago. Most accounts refer to the sea monster as gray with a large eel-like body, elongated head, 4 flippers, and a thick tail. Allegedly, the water serpent may have been floating around Australia's shores since the Jurassic era. While modern legend hunters have yet provided evidence of the existence of Australia's own Loch Ness monster, research has found that the creature may have been a large crocodile, catfish, or eel. And if you wish to go looking for this river monster, it's said that you can hunt it in Hawkesbury, northwest of Sydney, just in case you guys want to die. At a number 4 spot, we have the Wakehurst Parkway. A stretch of road spanning from Narrabeen in Sydney's northern beaches, the Wakehurst Parkway is well known to locals as a hotspot for paranormal activity, with many vehicle-related passings occurring around the 14.6 kilometer stretch of road. Spooky stories range from seeing strange humanoids on this roadside to unsettling urban legend of the girl Kelly. According to the legend, Kelly appears as a younger girl who either stands in the middle of the road or appears in the backseat of your car. Apparently, if you don't demand she leaves the car, the driver will crash. The road has also been associated with gruesome crimes over the years, such as in 1994 when 34-year-old Stephen Dempson was shot in the heart with a crossbow at Deep Creek Reserve on the Wakehurst Parkway. His killer dumped his body in the creek but later returned to dismember it, taking it and putting it in a freezer. 1 year later, the body of 21-year-old Francis Tizone was found just meters from the Wakehurst Parkway in French's Forest, where her body has been dumped after being strangled by her ex-boyfriend. At a number 3 spot, we have the Beechworth Lunatic Asylum. Beechworth Asylum, also known as Mayday Lunatic Asylum, operated from 1867 to 1994 in Beechworth, Victoria, Australia. Over those 128 years, over 9,000 patients died within its walls, and people claim that some still remain in it. Many see faces floating in the windows, while others see the apparitions of the people who passed there. Many have spoken of the figure of a man who appears near the cellar and then completely vanishes within a second. Matron Sharp, who spent most of her life there, has been spotted on more than one occasion appearing as a gray hooded apparition in the corner of dark rooms. Then on top of that, doors swing by themselves, and at other times, mysterious screams can be heard echoing across this place. Now, the area is used for tourism and artistic purposes nowadays, but remember, this place claimed the lives of 9,000 people. There's bound to be at least one of them there if you decide to take a visit. At a number 2 spot, we have the Otways Panther. Supposedly, there's been alleged sightings of the elusive big cat scurrying its way through the Otways Ranges, where the bush meets the beach off Victoria's Great Ocean Road. Supposed sightings of black panthers in the bush have been documented since 1830s, ranging from rumors of big cats in the bush by New Eastern migrants to sworn testimonies and videos taken in more recent years. All have given the legendary creature a similar description: a large black 4-legged creature very similar to a panther. Some explanations have been historical exotic animal trades or an evolutionary trail of feral cats in the area, while others have suggested that they may have come from traveling circuses or visiting soldiers years ago. Similar sightings have been reported in other states, including the Blue Mountains. It's said that you can encounter this beast in the Great Otways National Park, almost 3 hours southwest of Melbourne, past the RACV Torquay Resort near Apollo Bay, just in case, again, if you guys want to die. All the way at our number 1 spot, we have the Picton Tunnels. The most famous of the Picton Tunnels in New South Wales, called the Mushroom Tunnel, was the first railway tunnel used by the New South Wales Railways. During World War II, the tunnel has been used to store weapons and ammo. It was also said to be a hub of paranormal activity after a lot of people taking their own lives, murder, and accidental passings happened inside of this place. Many who have been brave enough to go into this tunnel have reported strange lights, cold spots, strange voices, and dark figures. There's also whispers that a mysterious lady in white still roams the tunnel, inducing fear into anyone who's unlucky enough to see her. Is it just me, or does every place have its own lady in white? Because this is not a surprise anymore. Coming in at our number 10 spot, we have Radiation Man. This is the story of a man who was kept alive for 83 days just so doctors could see the effects of radiation and how long a human could last. In 1999, 3 technicians at a nuclear power plant in Japan were involved in a catastrophic accident that left one of them, Hisashi Uchi, with the highest dose of radiation any human has ever experienced. Uchi, along with Masato Shinohara and Yutaka Yakokoa, were working at a plant when a nuclear reaction occurred, emitting neutron radiation and gamma rays all over the place. As a result, Uchi received a devastating 17 sieverts of radiation, while Shinohara and Yokokawa received fatal doses of 10 and 3 sieverts respectively. The effects of radiation on Uchi were immediate and severe, causing burns and completely damaging his internal organs and immune system. Despite being treated by a team of top medical professionals from around the world, Uchi's condition continued to deteriorate. He underwent numerous skin transplants and was kept alive through the use of blood and fluids, including drugs and life support. Tragically, on the 59th day of treatment, Uchi's heart stopped 3 times in just 49 minutes, causing severe damage to his brain and his kidneys. He eventually passed away on December 21st, 1999 due to multi-organ failure, spending the final 83 days of his life in intense pain and suffering. At a number 9 spot, we have the Unit 731. Yup, this story is terrible. Unit 731 was a Japanese biological warfare research unit that operated in China during World War II. It was headquartered in a facility in the Pingfan district, located in China, and they conducted experiments on human subjects in order to test the effectiveness on biological weapons and even study the effects of various diseases. The unit was established in 1936 and operated until the end of the war in 1945. It was led by Shiro Ishii, a Japanese army doctor, and was composed of several hundred scientists and medical professionals. The unit conducted a wide range of experiments on human subjects, including prisoners of war and civilians, often without their consent or even their knowledge. Some of the experiments conducted by Unit 731 included infecting subjects with diseases such as the bubonic plague, cholera, and typhoid fever. They would also study the effects of frostbite by deliberately exposing subjects to extreme cold and performing surgeries on live subjects without any sort of anesthesia. As a result, many of the subjects died in these experiments, and the unit is believed to have killed thousands of people during its operation. After the war, many of the members of Unit 731 were granted immunity from prosecution in an exchange for sharing the data they had collected with the United States. This decision has been heavily criticized, obviously, as it allowed the perpetrators of these atrocities to evade accountability for their actions. However, in more recent years, the Chinese government did call for Japan to take responsibility for this Unit 731 and to provide compensation to the victims and their families. The Chinese government was also called for the unit's activities to be recognized as war crimes and for the perpetrators to be held accountable once and for all. At a number 8 spot, we have the Elevator Man. Apparently some time ago, in a towering skyscraper located in Korea, there was a young woman named Karuko. She was a very bright 19-year-old student who lived in the 14th floor of her building, but on one fateful night, she had an experience in an elevator that would change her life. As the elevators began to close, a handsome stranger managed to slip his hand in order to stop them. The man stepped inside of the elevator and stood very close to Karuko. This is when the two began to flirt and engage in very small talk. The stranger told her he lived on the 13th floor, just 1 floor below her. As the elevator approached the 13th floor and the man walked out, the man suddenly turned around, turned to Karuko and said, "I'll see you upstairs." He then pulled out a knife as he left, he laughed and then disappeared towards the staircase. The doors of the elevator then shut, leaving Karuko alone and afraid. As the elevator continued to climb to the 14th floor, Karuko frantically pressed every button trying to get it to stop. But it was all in vain. The elevator doors finally opened up on the 14th floor, and to Karuko's terror, she found the man waiting for her. She was tragically slain before she could even scream for help, and since then, many have claimed this is a true story, and it's said to be the explanation why elevators now have this stop button. Some even say that the man who killed Karuko still roams the halls of this building, trying to lure innocent people into the elevator with him. And also, there is a game I mentioned in a lot of my past videos which include this story, and this is basically the origin story to that. So if you ever want to know more, just search up the elevator game online and you can even play this yourself. At a number 7 spot, we have the P-40 ghost plane. In 1942, American radar detected a strange aircraft approaching their territory from Japan. Although it appeared to be an airplane, it did not have the typical markings of an aerial attack. The American military dispatched 2 pilots to intercept the mysterious plane. As they approached it, they discovered that the aircraft was a P-40, and they were surprised to find that it bore markings that had not been used since the Pearl Harbor attack. Additionally, they observed that the plane was in very poor condition, with bullet holes riddling the fuselage and the landing gear completely blown away. The pilots were amazed that the plane was even able to fly in the first place. However, they were shocked to find the pilot slumped in the cockpit, wearing a flight suit stained with fresh blood. When the pilots looked through the window, the pilot raised his hand slightly and turned toward them, offering a meek wave. Shortly thereafter, the plane crashed to the ground with a deafening roar. American troops arrived at the crash site but found no evidence of the pilot or any identifying markings from the plane. Researchers later found a diary at the crash site that helped them to determine that the plane must have come from Mindanao, which was an island 1,000 miles away. The rest of the story still remains a complete mystery. Some have speculated that the plane may have been downed over a year earlier and the pilot managed to survive on his own in the wild. He could have scavenged parts from other downed aircraft, repaired his airplane, and then navigated his way back to the homeland through hostile territory. However, the mystery remains as to how heavy the P-40 aircraft could have taken off without any sort of landing gear. Japanese records confirm that an American P-40 flew over Formosa on December 8th, 1942, but where it came, where it was headed, and how it even got airborne still remains a mystery. At a number 6 spot with the Maria Labo. Maria Labo was a woman from the province of Capiz in the Philippines who had a happy family consisting of a loving husband and one son. However, she decided to work abroad in England for the sake of her family's financial stability. Maria was lucky enough to have a good employer who treated her well, but she didn't know that her employer was a vampire, supposedly. It was said that Maria was a combination of a maid and a caregiver to this vampire employer, who would always provide her with half-cooked liver to eat. After a few months of working for him, Maria started to feel sick. Little did she know that she has ingested some of her employer's blood, which caused her this unknown illness. Eventually, Maria decided to return home to the Philippines to live with her family. Upon returning home, Maria's husband, who was a police officer, was very surprised to see her. She had already prepared dinner, but when her husband asked where their son was, Maria just replied, "Our son is right there." Her husband was confused, and it wasn't until he opened the refrigerator that he realized the horrific truth. The meat he had eaten that day was their own son. In a fit of rage, Maria's husband picked up a large knife and slashed her face, leaving a large scar, which is why she was called Maria Labo. Labo means scar in Filipino. From that day on, Maria went on a murderous rampage and stalked or hunted in many different locations within the Philippines. However, her husband continued to hunt for Maria because he just wanted to kill her and end all of this. It is also said that whenever Maria was known to be in any place within the Philippines, people would try to find and kill her in order to save her own children. So there would be this large hunt out for her and it would just be crazy. In the hub for our list, we have the Hello Kitty murders. Our story begins in May 1999 when a 13-year-old girl approached the Hong Kong police, claiming that a woman whom her boyfriend had helped to kill was haunting her. The police was initially skeptical, but when the girl described how a 23-year-old woman was brutally tortured and bound with electrical wire in a third-floor flat on Granville Road 31, they knew they had to investigate. As they searched the apartment, they uncovered some truly horrifying evidence: a large Hello Kitty doll that had been stuffed with a woman's head. The victim of this ghastly crime was Fan Man Yi, a 23-year-old nightclub hostess who has been abducted for over a year, allegedly for failing to repay a $20,000 debt. According to the various media reports, Fan was held captive for over a month, during which time she was subjected to brutal torture on a daily basis until she eventually succumbed to her injuries. The men responsible for her death then chopped up the body into tiny pieces and disposed of it with the garbage. Some versions of the story claim that they even skinned her and boiled her. Although this is difficult to confirm, what is even more terrifying is that her severed head was sewn inside of a Hello Kitty doll, which became the bizarre story for this tragic accident, the Hello Kitty murder. When the news of this gruesome murder hit the press, it horrified residents of Hong Kong and sparked a media frenzy that lasted for months. As if the story couldn't get any more chilling, there was even reports of a shadowy female figure lurking near the apartment building where this happened, and it was captured on various CCTV cameras from nearby buildings. At our number 4 spot, we have the Tugu complex. In the city of Malang are 3 schools who are in deep connection with the horrors committed in World War II. Back in the 1940s, these 3 schools were used as concentration camps attempts by the opposing Japanese soldiers. The Japanese created an underground system of crawl spaces and secret rooms that connected each school along with the local train station and governor's office. This would ensure accessibility everywhere. Legend says that 2 teenagers attempted to explore these tunnels and secret passageways, but after a short time, one student came out screaming while the other one was found weeks later in the train station in a trance-like state and unable to speak about the horrors he saw. Many believe it was the ghost of those who lost their lives there in World War II. Another occurrence is the bloodstains on the floor tiles in each of these buildings. And the odd thing is that workers say that removing these stains are nearly impossible, and some would even fall ill after completing the cleanup job, which is why they have stopped doing it completely. At a number 3 spot, we have the Orang Minyak. The Orang Minyak, or the oily man, is a creature that takes the shape of a man that is covered in a thick, murky black oil. It comes at the darkest time of night when it's almost impossible to see. It snatches young women in rural villages when they're sleeping, and this is why many people fear oil spills in the country, oddly enough. It can shapeshift into oil to slip through cracks in the walls and the floors, so there's basically no place to hide from the Orang Minyak. In Malaysia's past, young women were told to wear clothing that was worn by a man so that this creature couldn't catch their scent. Keeping a mirror nearby, it was also a must because this creature doesn't like to see their own reflection. This became such a big urban legend that some girls would cover their rooms in all mirrors, but in my opinion, that is just as creepy as this creature. Number 2, the Karak Highway. This Malaysian highway is said to be the world's most haunted highway. It is a 70-kilometer long interstate highway that connects Kuala Lumpur to the Genting Highlands. The amount of paranormal reports from this highway alone is enough to make someone take a way longer detour instead. The first of these incidents happened when a couple and their baby were returning one night from vacation. The car then suddenly broke down on the side of the road, and as he looked for someone to help, he notices the highway was completely empty. So he walks up to the closest nearby phone booth to call for help, but the man never ended up returning. After a few hours of waiting, his wife calls the police, but when they arrive, they tell her to not step out of the vehicle and to not look behind them. After walking a distance away, she turns around to see her husband's headless body being devoured by a banshee-like creature on top of their car. Also on Karak Highway, if you find yourself stuck behind a yellow Volkswagen Beetle, just get away from it. This vehicle is known to stalk drivers and even cause them to get into fatal accidents. So be extra careful if you guys decide to drive near this area in Malaysia. At a number 1 spot, we have the Mongolian deathworm. The Gobi Desert, located between Mongolia and China, is said to have a Mongolian deathworm, otherwise known as an intestine worm, due to its appearance of being fleshy and red in color. This 2 to 7 foot long creature has the ability to spit out venomous liquid out of its mouth, and if you ever get close enough to touch the creature, it is believed that the entire body is covered in a sticky, poisonous substance that will kill you on touch. And if that wasn't enough, it can even electrify you the same way an eel can. While movies on the creature depict it as being this large, colossal being, it's actually believed to be a lot smaller at around 7 feet. Regardless, the fact that this creature can hide anywhere in the desert sands and come out with basically no weaknesses makes it one of the most dangerous and scariest ones on this list. At a number 10 spot, we have the Guantanamo's ghost prisoners. The military prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, took its first 20 detainees in 2002. Despite various calls to shutter it, it still stands almost 20 years later. It was built in order to house prisoners captured in Afghanistan or other terrorists. At its peak, it housed just under 800 people, with many of the prisoners being detained without any sort of trial. In the early days of the detention camp, many of the prisoners were tortured physically and mentally. So this prison was the real deal and is in many movies and TV shows to this day, and you can probably see the depiction they do on it. Except after all the abuse, death, and injustice, the spirits have been said to be very aggressive in this prison. This is no surprise. Just doing my research on this place alone made me think, how could the US government create this prison in the first place? In short, it's a terrible place for terrible people. But since many were taken here without any sort of trial, I really wonder how many were innocent and actually ended up passing away in this very prison, knowing that they're innocent and they were treated the worst out of any prison in the world probably. At our number 9 spot, with the El Chupacabras. Imagine being in a world where a mysterious creature roams free and just wreaks havoc on livestock, especially when having livestock meant life or death. This is the world that people in Puerto Rico found themselves in during 1995, when the first reported sightings of the El Chupacabras were recorded. The name Chupacabras comes from the Spanish words chupar, which is to suck, and cabras, which is goat, which refers to its common depiction as blood-sucking reptile-like creatures with huge red eyes and sharp quills on its spine. This creature is said to stand 4 feet tall and be similar to a vampire, kangaroo, and wild dog all mashed together. Many people who claim to have seen it say that it's real, but others believe it's completely a legend. The first sighting of the Chupacabras was reported in Puerto Rico in 1995 when a local woman discovered dead livestock that had been drained of their blood. After this, reports of sightings started coming in from various parts of Puerto Rico and other countries, which included the Dominican Republic, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, Colombia, El Salvador, Panama, Peru, and you name it. People claim to have seen the creature attacking and killing their livestock, and even some people reported seeing the creature itself. In 2011, a book called Tracking the Chupacabras was published by Benjamin Radford. Radford concluded that the eyewitness in the original Puerto Rican incident has based her description of the creature on a sci-fi horror film she had seen. After 5 years of investigation, Radford officially denied the existence of such creatures. However, many people still believe that the Chupacabras are real, and sightings did continue to surface afterward in 2018 and 2019. At a number 8 spot, we have the Cuban Missile Crisis. So this is a time when the world almost ended, so this has to be a spot on this list. The 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis is considered to be one of the most intense 13 days of the Cold War, and this is because one single misstep could have meant a whole nuclear destruction all over the world. However, the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, the missile crisis began when US surveillance discovered what the Soviets sanctioned missiles in Cuba. And why did this scare Americans? Well, because Cuba is only 90 miles away from Florida, so the US debated whether to send an air raid or perhaps an invasion of Cuba in order to destroy these supposed missiles. After these intense 13 days of intense negotiations, with everyone a millimeter away from nuking one another, President John Kennedy and the Soviet leader were able to make a deal. To make this even more scarier, a Russian army officer named Vasily Arkhipov is considered to be the man who literally saved everyone on Earth. This is because on October 27, 1962, he was in a nuclear submarine when the US started to use non-lethals to bring their submarines up. They didn't know if this was an act of war, so they were just seconds away from launching a nuclear warhead when Vasily stood up to everyone and demanded not to send it out, possibly saving the entire human civilization. At a number 7 spot with the Jaco Santino. The story begins when a traveling farmer who resided near Orcovis in the early 20th century. The man fished till late at night, and on his way home, he lit a jaco to light the way. Unfortunately, the jaco caught fire before the man arrived home. He went through his possessions and discovered a wooden crucifix among them. He lit up the crucifix and used it as a lantern because he was in desperate need of light. The man would die only a few days later after contracting a serious illness. Since he burned the cross, it is said that his spirit was condemned to stay on earth until he finds all the ashes of the sacred crucifix. So the legend says if you see a mysterious light floating around, it is the man with the jaco, and be sure not to disturb his search because they say he's a very aggressive spirit when provoked. At a number 6 spot, we have Jacinto's well. We're going to talk about a natural well, and from the looks of it, it seems like a nice tourist spot to take photos of, but locals claim a very tragic backstory instead. Back in the day, there was a supposed farmer by the name of Jacinto. Every day he would take his cows out to eat around that area because who wouldn't want to let their cows see this type of views? For some odd reason, Jacinto would ensure no cows would get out of line by using a rope and securing it around his own waist. Probably not the brightest idea in hindsight. This is because on one rainy night, Jacinto happened to be by this well when thunder startled one of his cows. The cow eventually ran into this well, bringing Jacinto down with him. Now it's said that if you go down to this well and shout out his names, the wave below will hit harder and higher. In the hump of our list, we have La Mano Peluda. The legend of La Mano Peluda is a spooky tale that can be heard in almost every Latin American country, but is especially popular in Mexico and Colombia. The story dates back to the Spanish Inquisition and has been passed down through generations of storytellers. The tale has many different versions, but most of them tell the story of a man who was wrongfully accused of a crime and had his hand cut off as punishment. This is when he swore revenge on everyone, and when he died, his hand came back seeking revenge. In the Mexican version of the story, the legend takes place in the year 1908 in Puebla. There was a man named Señor Villa who is known as Horta, and he and his wife La Gangosa owned a pawn shop. Horta was a terrible man who ripped off his customers and treated them very badly. After his death, a local newspaper ran a story that a graveyard keeper told them. The graveyard keeper claimed to see a black hairy hand with rings sticking out of Horta's grave. The hand would look for victims to tear out their eyeballs and choke them to death, then return back into Horta's grave. Since then, there has been many reports of people claiming to have seen this hand pulling them out of their bed while sleeping, and others have reported seeing it moving through the field searching for more victims. Other versions of this legend describe the hand as being black, hairy, with sharp nails twice the size of an adult's hand, all while leaving a trail of blood behind it. Maggots can also be seen moving around the hand, and the hand waits for children to get out of bed. At our number 4 spot, we have the Treasure of Lima. The Treasure of Lima is a fascinating legend of a buried treasure that was removed from Lima, Peru in 1820 and never recovered. The treasure is estimated to be worth up to $208 million in today's money. The treasure was originally collected by the Roman Catholic Church in Lima and was intended to be transported to Mexico for safekeeping during the Peruvian War of Independence. Captain William Thompson was put in charge of transporting the riches to Mexico, but he and his crew turned pirates and stole the treasure. They then buried it on Cocos Island off the coast of present-day Costa Rica. Thompson and his first mate were the only ones to survive out of the crew, and they agreed to lead the Spanish to the stolen treasure to save their lives. They took them as far as the Cocos Island and then managed to escape into the jungle. Thomas, the first mate, and the treasure were never seen again. Though it is believed that Thompson returned to Newfoundland with the aid of a whaling ship, Forbes settled in California and became a successful businessman, but never returned to the island. Since that time, hundreds of treasure hunters have traveled to the Cocos Island to find the Treasure of Lima, but none have succeeded and many have lost their lives attempted to find this supposed treasure. One theory is that the treasure was not buried on the Cocos Island at all, but on an unknown island off the coast of Central America. The Costa Rican government does not allow treasure hunting any longer and believes no treasure exists on this island, but people remain convinced. At our number 3 spot, we have Duende. In Western Honduras, particularly in Copan Ruinas, there is a terrifying legend that has been passed down from generation to generation. The legend of the El Duende, the Goblin. According to the Vejetos, or old folks, El Duende is an evil little man with dark skin who wears an elegant green suit and a big hat or a sombrero. He is said to only appear to single women, particularly on remote roads to rural villages or when women are alone in their houses. The legend goes that El Duende is an enamorado, a playboy who offers gifts and wealth to women in order to entice them to go away with him. Those who accept his offerings become enchanted by his evil powers and suffer consequences such as becoming mute or mentally impaired. If the women do not pay attention to the Duende, he chases them and throws rocks or cow dung at them. The Veto suggests that if El Duende appears to a woman, the best thing to do is to remain calm, act friendly, and ask him for something impossible, such as an open basket filled with water from a river. The frustration of not being able to fulfill such a request will cause the Duende to disappear and never to return to bother the woman again. Number 2, the house in Pinar del Rio. Although the date of when this house was built is unknown, what is known about it has been abandoned for over 20 years. This property is located right at kilometer 78 of the highway that connects Havana with Pinar del Rio. And every time someone decides to visit this abandoned house, they also come out reporting something very strange and sometimes supernatural. Former residents of the home have all left due to feeling uncomfortable in the house. For example, couples who have stayed slowly begin to argue more and more aggressively. Some have told others that it's impossible to sleep at night because of the constant nightmares you get while in this home. Meanwhile, the residents of this area claim to see strange lights coming from the inside and have seen wild dogs enter the house which are nowhere to be seen after. It is said that the house was originally built for a man named Juan, who is a very lonely man, and eventually the house would start to present supernatural activity once he started living in it. Soon after, he would then go deaf and would live inside of this house with these spirits as his friends. Since the man has passed, the spirits of this house are unwelcoming, and if you dare step foot, you may be putting you and your family's lives in danger. Number 1, Cementerio La Reina. This cemetery is essentially an outdoor crumbling art museum. This was a monument to plantation farming and wealthy trade barons when it first opened in 1800s. Most tombs are crowned with massive statues of beauty and grace. In recent years, the cemetery has fallen into disrepair and has been targeted by many grave robbers. Sleeping Beauty statue is one of the many statues that stands out to many visitors. Story goes that the young woman buried there was promised to an older wealthy plantation owner, but her heart belonged to a young local boy. When her wedding drew near, she ran off and married her true sweetheart. Unfortunately, she died soon after of cholera. Regardless of her betrayal, the older man buried her in the family space and erected a large statue that still stands today, a restless spirit in life and in death.